Hi, and welcome to Third Thursdays with Jessica. This is our January edition, and I'm excited to be able to share about the early childhood intervention process and why it's a great opportunity for families who are in need and for children who are in need. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about early childhood intervention. So welcome with me. Um, so, so early childhood intervention by definition is a statewide program in Texas with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission for children, families with children ages birth to age 3. So we'll be talking about interventions in general, but also more specifically about there are two different programs. One is called Early Childhood Intervention, the other one's called Child Find. So, and they have different services and different accessibility. So, so early childhood intervention in particular is from birth to age 3, and it does help. They're looking for abnormalities with developmental delays. There may be disabilities or also certain medical diagnoses that they have listed on the website also are included. And the point of all of that is that these things impact development. So ECI, as we call it, those services are there to support families as they learn to learn, not only to help the child through the specific therapies and interventions, but also help the families to support the child as well. So Child Find, on the other hand, is the program in Texas that goes from ages 3 to 5. So this is a federal mandate under the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and it does require local school districts, especially public school districts and charter schools, to identify, locate, and evaluate all children with disabilities that are within their jurisdictions who need special education and related services. So, so once a child moves from age 2 to age 3, they move into what's considered this Child Find program, and that is more located within the public schools. And they have a mandate to provide services for children who are in need, and they have the resources as well. So, what kind of services are available for children in need? So there are speech and language therapy. So I think that's the most common one that we're used to hearing about. A lot of children are in speech therapy. I've had one of my 3 go through speech therapy. There's also language therapies, which is just a little bit different. But, that could be articulation, that could be vocabulary, that could be, if a child's had a tongue tie, or maybe it could also be a processing issue if a child's not sure how to put together information. So sometimes they find processing issues through that. So there are lots of different things that the speech therapies cover, but that's probably our most common therapy that we see in children between ages birth and 5. And then the second one would be physical therapy. So those could be, we know what physical therapies are. They are the things that help us rehab, like when we sprained an ankle, or if a child has actually a congenital issue, or maybe they've had a break, something happened with their hands or their arms or their legs or something like that. They may need physical therapy in order to do that, to help in that recovery and get ahead of that. Occupational therapy as well is another one. So a lot of parents are like, well, what is occupational therapy? So that is those are things that help children with life skills. So it could be the use of fine motor or something like that, just in order for a child to be able to feed themselves or to get dressed. So those occupational therapies, it could be learning how to put together steps and things like that in order to be able to understand how to wash their hands. So those are kind of those therapies once they identify maybe if there's a processing issue that they need to learn how to put steps together. It helps them to build coping mechanisms or to be able to learn those skills in a direct format. There are also things like psychological and behavioral therapies. That's probably more and more for children. We see more children with psychological issues, with social issues, things like that, due to traumas and things like that. Behavioral therapies, maybe, children with ADHD might benefit from that, some child with autism, things like that, where there's some severe behaviors that they're trying to teach children different scripts in order to get through life. Nutrition and feeding therapy. So, if a child has failure to thrive, or maybe they're just having feeding issues, we do see that. I'm seeing it more and more with children with autism. They may need help with feeding or learning how to swallow, learning how to do things, how to eat certain foods, learning to taste them, learning, kind of getting past that place where they refuse to try something. So feeding therapies is a new thing. I found out that it's not a new thing. It's just now being used a whole lot more. So feeding therapy is a thing. And then I think we're also pretty familiar with hearing and vision services. So maybe a child who needs glasses, who has some hearing difficulties and stuff. Sometimes that is all linked, especially the hearing end, with speech therapies as well. So the question really is, why early childhood intervention, right? So why not just wait till kindergarten, right? They'll get caught up, we'll catch kindergarten, that's when in the schools, they can deal with that. A lot of times pediatricians who only see your child once a year for a well check, and when they're sick, don't catch these things. So don't see the patterns. So why not just wait till kindergarten? And so the big question with all of that is, or the big answer, sorry for my phone, is that we can see from this chart that from birth to 5 years, 92% of the child's brain has developed. So many of these connections, so this says 92%, 80%, 90% of the brain connections and development happens by the time they're 5. So if we wait until they're 5 or 6 when they get into kindergarten, we have missed a critical window in order for children to continue development. It means that these connections are already solidifying, they're already missing typically, and we it just will take longer at that point. So we want to catch children as early as possible. I've seen some families that have done this early, especially with autism, and have had tremendous results in their children getting to normal levels, or typically developing levels. So the thing is, as I note here, when you wait until a child's in the kindergarten classroom and they finally start that, they're going to start missing critical learning time as well. What we do is wonderful in early childhood, but it's also very appropriate and for the children to be able to take the time to learn specific skills through interventions. But if you wait till kindergarten, it starts to move very fast in that classroom. And so they are going to be missing out on critical learning time. And then the other side of that is, if you do wait until kindergarten, and sometimes that does happen, the truth of the matter we're going to look at as well later, it could take 6 to 9 months to get services through public sector. And so when you wait until 5 or wait until 6, it may be 6 or 7 by the time that the assessment is done, the diagnostics are done, the ARD meetings happen, and a child starts to receive services. So we want that process to start as early as possible. And so that's another reason why it's critical for us to be looking at that in the preschool world. So what are the benefits of early intervention? So I've received this from the Office of Judicial Department. And the programs that lead to the following, so programs that they studied led to the following advantages for program participants relative to those in a control group. So they took, in this study, children from the Perry School, which is a high scope based school, along with several other schools. I think this was in the 1980s. And for children that had these specific interventions, they looked at what that looked like compared to children with similar behaviors or in a control group that were not receiving these services. So these were some of the benefits that they found. There was increased emotional or cognitive development for the child. And typically that's in the short run, but also in the long run, and then improved parent-child relationships. So when a parent can understand a child, what they're saying, that improves that relationship. When a child's not acting out because they're misunderstood, that improves that relationship. When a child has the skill set and the tools to be able to get through a big emotion, that helps these relationships. And you could say that as well for child and caregiver relationships within the school. So there's just a really quick thing that happens when children receive the services that they need in regards to their relationships. Second, there's an improved educational processes and outcomes for the child. So even in that, over the short run and the long run, they found that by children receiving services as early as they can, and in the pre-elementary years, the outcomes for the children were far greater than those in the control group. Third, enhanced economic self-sufficiency, initially for the parent and later for the child through increased participation in the labor force, decreased participation in welfare, and higher incomes. So these are all things that help children be successful in school, but also in their careers and things like that. There was decreased criminal activity, so you can understand that, especially when you're looking at behavioral therapies and things like that, where the more success children have in school, the more engaged they are, the less likely that they're going to go into criminal activities. And then improved health-related indicators such as child abuse, maternal reproductive health, and substance abuse. So children who received these things and were able to get closer to the target of typically developing students are able have less child abuse. I mean, just a child who can control their emotions just makes such a big difference in how parents react, especially those that don't have tools themselves. So that's great. These are all wonderful benefits of early intervention. So here at the school, what do we use in order to determine who we're going to recommend for evaluation? So at the weekday program, we have a beginning of the year parent questionnaire. So a lot of times that will give us some indicators about your child, about how they're doing, about where they are on certain levels. Then we have instituted the Ages and Stages questionnaire at least once a year, tried twice to 3 times a year. So that Ages and Stages questionnaire gives them, that actually has information, if within that, as it compares to developmental norms, if a child has more than 3 areas where they have not met the developmental milestones, then it itself will recommend a child be evaluated to see if there are any delays in those areas, if there's anything to that, or maybe they just didn't want to do the test that day. So especially as we're looking at it, we're going to be seeing if anything, if there's a halt in development, or if they do continue, if they're continuing on, or if they're going to have continuous or if they have an sorry, I lost my thought. If they are not meeting milestones, test after test after test, or at each of these stages, we're going to be wondering if they need a little help with that area. So, and then the third thing that we use is teaching strategies. We do, part of this cycle is assessments, but it's also engaging the families, using the analytics to make sure children are meeting their milestones as well. So with everything that we do there, it also helps. So, so the kind of the combination of those three, along with the education we receive, though we're really trained in developmental norms, what children should be doing at certain stages. We're not here to diagnose ever, but when we see a child that may be struggling in an area, we might want to have y'all seek a little evaluation and see what's going on. So there are free and private ways to receive this information. So if your child is birthed to 35 months, we would recommend seeking out in Collin County or in Dallas County, depending on which ISD you're in. There are different centers that do the diagnostics and do the evaluation. So ECI of LifePath in Collin County, and then the Warren Center in Dallas County. And then privately, if you can always go and receive and seek out private opportunities. So the Shelton has an evaluation services in Richardson, kind of Richardson, Dallas area. Another one that I really like is a Therapy Connection, and those are local as well. So you can pay to have that evaluation done through them. If your child is ages 3 through 5, the school district is where you would be going. In Collin County and Plano ISD, that's Isaac's Early Childhood School. They have assessment teams on different areas of the city, and so we partner with them as well. And then if you're in Richardson ISD, there's special student services. They call it PPCD there, and then they will do their diagnostics as well. And then privately, these are two more that we recommend. One is SPOTS, the SUGS Pediatric Outpatient Therapy Services. That's down in Dallas. Done a lot of training with her, with Jennifer that runs that. And then Echo Behavior Consulting. We've had some children come through that have been working with Echo Behavioral. So that's, we like them as well. So, so you can see it does change depending on what the age is, but we do have a pamphlet here in our offices in order to help you navigate that. So what is the process? The first thing is calling to schedule an evaluation with any of these, whichever of these clinics or centers that you're going to do that. They'll give you an evaluation appointment. And then after the evaluation is done, if services are determined, you're going to have some goals that are set, and those are put into what we call an IEP, Individual Education Plan. So there's always a set of accountability for the therapist, but also for to identify what exactly goals the child is looking to achieve, or what they're hoping to teach. Then from there, after the IEP is created, then they will create an execution plan. So those can be done, especially in the birth to 3, those are done at home. A lot of people don't realize those can be done here, especially for children who are here full time at the weekday program. We do allow therapists to come in and do the therapies here. We have you sign off and things like that. So there's that. They may ask you to come into their clinic, just depending on what their plan is. If you're in the ages 3 to 5 and it's at the school district, often they will put them into a class at age 3, and then at age 4 and 5 as well. That's either 3 days a week, 2 days a week. It may just be 30 minutes on a Wednesday or something like that. So, so those can also be done there. And then they will do, after that, they're receiving services. You'll get an annual reevaluation. They're going to check the goals, look at the IEP, decide whether the child needs to continue having services or not. If the child is 2 turning 3, then they have they'll be determining, do they need to continue services at the school district, or can we release them from the program? So An ARD meeting, I actually had to look this up. I didn't know what an ARD stood for, but it is a meeting to discuss their admission, their review, or the dismissal. So those are the meetings that you have with the clinicians and all of that, and the parents to decide what the steps are and all of that. And as noted, they moved from ECI to Child Find on their 3rd birthday. So all of this, just from step 1 to step 3, can often take at least 3 months, if not 6 months or longer. So, and when we're looking at the volume of development that's occurring between ages birth and 5, that's a long time. So we definitely want to start this process as soon as possible. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me at the weekday program, or you can reach me by email at any point. So thank you for being with me, and enjoy the rest of your day.